Good afternoon, everyone. It's a Tomlin Tuesday as we welcome you into the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex here on the south side as the Steelers get ready for another challenge this week as the schedule gets a little bit more daunting. This week it's a trip out west to the Chargers, and the Steelers have done pretty well over there on the road with wins. You might remember the Michael Vick-led game. Duck Hodges won there. And this week, at this point, we don't know who's going to be a quarterback. That's one of the topics that I'm sure Mike Tomlin will get into. I'm Bob Pompiani. Thanks for joining us here on Pittsburgh CW as well as all the Steeler digital platforms. We have a lot to cover today. A lot of injuries, COVID cases, all these things Mike Tomlin will address, not to mention the tie with Detroit, which was 16-16. And you can view that one of two ways. Sometimes it's better than a loss, of course, when you're looking around the league and you see teams, not too many of them have fewer losses than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So bottom line is that's one they'd like to have back. It felt more like a loss. I'm sure most people will tell you that, but it wasn't a loss. So they're 5-3-1, a half game behind Baltimore, still ahead of Cincinnati and Cleveland as we enter play here this week against the Chargers, who have a very talented team led by Justin Herbert, of course, and Joey Bosa on defense. Right now, head coach Mike Tomlin is ready to roll. Let's hear from the coach on this Tomlin Tuesday.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick synopsis of our last performance. The reasons why we were not successful in terms of pursuit of victory are really kind of clear when you look at it, when you look back at it with 20/20 vision. We need more splash in our special teams. I thought they punted, 10 or 11 times in game, many of which were open grass scenarios. And if you get that number of opportunities in that phase of the game, you'd like to think that you're going to have a significant play in that phase, either a block punt or a significant return. We didn't get enough splash in special teams, and that's just an example of what I'm talking about. Just 10, 11 opportunities to get your punt return group at somebody. Usually you get an opportunity to gain some significance. We didn't. And so we got some work to do, some detailed work to do in that phase of the game to have more splash to collectively affect the outcome in our games in the ways in which we desire. We like our schematics and plans. We like the core group of guys that are developing the type of cohesion that's required to have splash in that phase. And, we've been into this thing now, about midway of the season. I think it's reasonable to expect that to turn up and to turn up more consistently and fluidly when needed. And so that'll be a point of ours and a point that guides our work in that phase of the game as we not only go into this week, but as we push into the second half of this thing. We got core players. We got some continuity in those core players. We like our approach to business, and so it's reasonable to expect that to be an expectation. Like I talked about after the game on defense, I thought our tackling at times was below the line, but also you got to tip your cap to the Lions in terms of some of the things that they did, particularly as it pertains to the running game. Now, looking back at it, we now have information that Coach Campbell was calling plays, and that created an unsteady environment relative to what we had planned for and anticipated. And so they got some third down runs and things of that nature that got us off balance in terms of the people and the personnel groups that we deploy on third down, and they extended some drives. And so that probably made the run game element of it look uglier than maybe it actually was. But there was enough ugliness on the tape in terms of missed tackles and explosion runs that needs to have our attention as we go to work this week. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to put pads on and tackle, 3 days this week and things of that nature. There are many ways to improve and focus on the tackling component of preparation. We do it every single day and every time the ball is snapped, because a major component of tackling is your approach, the speed in which you approach the ball carrier, long stride, short stride, the angle in which you approach them, and your knowledge of your fit relative to that tackle and others in pursuit. And so it's not just tackling the functional art of tackling, but it's the approach, it's knowledge of pursuing defenders and your fit within it, it's speed, it's the length of strides. And so we're just going to really have a good fundamental week in that regard. It's not that we've had bad practices, quite frankly, in that regard, but sometimes when you have a less than desired result, man, it really ratchets you down and makes you focus on some things that we carry a candle for anyway. On the offensive side of the ball, looking at it, our inability to score enough points to secure victory, I really think is steeped in our inability to maintain possession of the football. If you look largely over the last 4 to 5 weeks, man, we've done a heck of a job offensively of protecting the football, of having great ball security. And we didn't do it on Sunday, and that had a lot to do with the end result, particularly the 2 turnovers in overtime. Were significant, man. You can't turn the ball over ever, really, and give yourselves a good chance to win, but particularly in those weighty moments, there's a price to pay for it, and we paid for it by not securing victory. And so, much like I was talking about the tackling, those of you that watch us work, you know we have an emphasis daily on ball security. That won't change, but it'll just put an edge to our work in that area with knowledge that we earn that each and every day. That point of emphasis, that fundamental point of emphasis that allows us to function and allows everybody, to be quite honest with you, in the game of football to function. I'm not talking about earth-shattering conversations here or we need to reinvent the wheel. I'm just talking about a nice emphasis on some core fundamental things on both sides of the ball, tackling on defense, ball security on offense. I think it's appropriate based on the last performance, but it's always appropriate to have that kind of in the front of your mind as you prepare to put yourself in position to win football games, particularly when you're going into a game like we're getting ready to go into against a very good team in their home venue on the road. There's added weight on those 2 discussions. And so what transpired is good food for that discussion, but also what awaits us at the end of the week also should have us in that lane in terms of our mindset and our work as well. From a health standpoint, we're dealing with a couple of things, man. We're excited about Chase Claypool working tomorrow and seeing where that work leads us in terms of him being included in this thing. Some in-game injuries are probably less clear. We'll give Dotson an opportunity, but we don't know where that leads in terms of his practice participation. Same for Joe Hayden with his foot injury. Feel confident that Trey Turner is going to be able to show up, and I'll always leave the light on for T.J. Watt. The things that he does routinely are not things that are done routinely by others. See where his participation leads us this week. On the COVID front, Ben has an opportunity, provided he gets the required negative testing to be available to play. You guys know that we've been in circumstances with Ben in the past when he's been less than available during the course of the week. Like I told the team yesterday in the team meeting, and I'll tell you guys, we're going to build our plan around getting Mason ready to play. We're going to highlight his talents and skills relative to the opponents that we intend to play. We're going to build that plan. We're going to work that plan. We got a young offensive unit, and we'll let that lead us throughout the week. If we get to a point in the week where Ben has an opportunity to get on a moving train, that's exactly what he'll do. He'll be capable of executing the game plan. I really have no reservations about that. I think he missed a significant amount of time of a work week last year when he was on the close contact list. And so he got back to us late in the week and performed. He's been injured and had personal discomfort in the past over the course of the 15 years that we've worked together. He always answers that bell, and so we'll definitely leave the light on for him. But as we sit here today, as we sat there yesterday, as we're in the midst of our schematic plan development, and as we come out of the gate tomorrow with our work, laying down the foundational things for the week, rest assured that we'll be focusing our energy on Reddy and Mason Rudolph and highlighting what he does and what the group does with him. But to be quite honest with you, it's not a lot of significant differences. Mason plugged into Ben's plan last week, and we didn't necessarily change that. And largely he functioned the way that we needed him to. He gave us a chance to win. Minka's in the protocol. We don't anticipate him coming back. But again, as always, man, we don't spend a lot of time lamenting those things and worrying about those that are unavailable to us. We'll focus our energies on those that are the division of labor. Again, Minka's the type of guy that it might be a multiple person job in an effort to highlight their individual skills. You know, Minka has a well-rounded skill set. You put him in any circumstances, he's going to perform relatively well. It may divide the labor up a little bit more, but that's what we do. We look at the hand that's dealt, we play the hand that's dealt, and we put ourselves in position to win. As a competitor, and I'm a competitor, we're competitors, we're all always excited about having an opportunity to smile in the face of adversity. the adversity that life in the game of football presents, whether it's injuries or COVID or otherwise. That's just something that always has my attention, something that we're always ready to stand up against. I think about last time we went to LA to play these guys. Man, we went out there with Duck Hodges, man, and had a pretty good day. That was then. This is now. We got a big week ahead of us in terms of the work, and obviously not only are we different, but they're different. And so I'll start talking about them a little bit. Talking about them starts with Herbert, their quarterback. Boy, really impressive talent. You see some things that you knew in draft preparation when he came out: the arm talent, the strength, the pinpoint accuracy, the ability to change his trajectory and drop the ball over linebackers into the dig area and so forth. You see the fluid mobility and easy mobility that he displayed at Oregon. He's 6'6", but he's an easy mover. They do some things schematically to highlight that, some design quarterback runs, some pocket movements. Even when they don't, he has the ability to extend plays with his leg talent that is challenging and create some challenges for a defense. Man, he's got an awesome collection of eligibles. You start with Keenan Allen. Have had nothing but respect for Keenan Allen over the years. Enjoyed having an opportunity to spend a week with him a few years back when we coached the Pro Bowl, man, and just to watch his day-to-day work even in that setting. It's not surprising why he's been as ridiculously consistent as he's been over the course of his career. He's a football lover. He's a football junkie. He works at it. He talks it. He lives it. And it's all over his tape. Can't say enough about Mike Williams and his ability to stretch the field. He's stretching the field for him this year, but he stretched the field for him over the course of his career. I think he's one of those 15 yards per catch average guys over the course of his career. And so that captures your attention. At the tight end position, they acquired Jared Cook. Man, Jared Cook's been in this league a long time. He's got over 7,000 yards receiving in his career for a tight end. He's got great vertical speed. He's a matchup issue for those that generally cover that position. That was on his tape a decade ago or whatever in 2009 when he came into this thing, and it's still on his tape now. Got a lot of respect for him. Can't say enough about Eckert, their featured. He's inside, he's outside. He's stronger than you think. He bounces off of tackles. He's got leg drive. His inclusion in the passing game is another component that really is worrisome. He's a matchup problem because of short area quicks. He's got really good hands and reliable hands. He's been a major component of their passing game for a number of years. I know that they got a new staff, but I think a short number of years ago, this guy caught 90 balls for almost 1,000 yards, coupled with his run exploits in a football season. And so he's off to a really good start for him this year in the running game, in the passing game. We got a lot of respect for all the things that he's capable of doing to you. But they utilize a lot of people. They spread the ball around. I think that makes life easier on the young quarterback. He's not beholden to anything or anyone, and they spread the ball around, and so that's really challenging. They utilize pace as a weapon in their offense, situational circumstances, short yardage, third downs, et cetera, that make you make decisions and limit you at times from a personnel standpoint in terms of some of the things that you like to do in those moments, and that's challenging. Flop over to the defensive side, Bosa and James, they're game wreckers in different ways, but they're game wreckers. Bosa is a guy that rushes the passer and is very ball aware, and they're group collectively ball aware. Oftentimes you work with a guy like him, it raises the standard of expectation for those around him. Is no different than, TJ is an extremely ball-aware guy, and it rubs off on the others that play with him. I see that on their tape. They're all very ball-aware. He's the catalyst of that. He's a challenge, and it's not only a challenge for the right tackle, although he spends a lot of time over there. You watch right guards have to deal with him. You watch left tackles have to deal with him. They move him around, inappropriately so, in an effort to minimize your preparedness for him and the things that people do schematically to minimize a guy like him in game. But much like TJ, we won't be presenting him anything or them anything that he hadn't seen, that he doesn't see week to week. And that's one of the reasons why he's the player that he is. Week to week, he overcomes those things. And so we're working to prepare with an edge in an effort to to not allow him to wreck our game, and particularly in those weighty moments where guys like him generally rise up, possession downs and situational play and so forth. Derwin James is multi-talented. He plays on the back end. He plays in the box. He's a tackler. He's a blitzer. He plays in coverage. He's just a really top quality player. He's dealt with injury a lot, I guess, over the last year and a half. I'm happy for him to see him back, not happy for us this week relative to preparing for him and to play him and to minimize what he does to groups. Those two guys are the catalysts, but they got a lot of players. They do a good job of mixing coverages and so forth on the back end. Ronaldo Hill is their coordinator. He's a first-time coordinator. He's been a secondary coach. His playing experiences in the secondary, and I see complexities in that area of play for them that illustrate that. Their third down menu and is challenging. They play some mans. They play some zones. They pressure. All the while, they do a really good job of kind of making those things look alike. They got a veteran nickel in Chris Harris, who's been around in this league for over a decade. And, you really have a leg up when you have a guy that's a savvy veteran like him at nickel. His disguise packages and things are exceptional. His knowledge of coverage and leverage and what is due is not only an asset to him, but an asset to them. He appears to be a hub of communication and does a good job of communicating with those around him. Linebackers to his inside, corners to his outside, safeties behind him. And that allows them to kind of work with the type of cohesion that you need to win those moments. And so, man, there's a lot to be excited about, a lot to have our attention as we lean in on this week and prepare for this week's challenge. We'll be singularly focused. We understand the gravity of this thing, but we understand the gravity of every week, and that's why we love what we do. This is the Ultimate Competitors League, and boy, we have some challenging competition waiting on us this week. I'll pause, man, and allow you guys to do your thing.
Hey, Mike, in light of the fact that two of your top guys going on the COVID list, is there anything you can or will do from a cautionary standpoint beyond just maybe talking to the guys or emphasizing the care they need to take?
We have exercised an abundance of precaution, and so that won't change.
Mike, now that you have time to evaluate the tape, just what are your thoughts more than just that he gave us a chance to win on Mason Rudolph on Sunday?
He did a good job articulating the offense, communicating with guys. The pace in which we desired to work, he was able to uphold. We work fast some. We utilize cadence as a weapon. He is central to that. We got some penalties and got a free 5 yards, and we're able to attack them downfield with his use of pace. His ability to communicate not only in game but between series and express likes and dislikes and articulate what he saw was acceptable. His reads and distribution of the football was largely what we wanted. He stretched the ball down the field at times and gave us an opportunity to make them not only defend the field horizontally but vertically. If I could be critical of him in any way, I thought he could have been better from a pinpoint accuracy standpoint in some instances to set up run after. And putting the ball in an ideal circumstance so a guy in the flat can win that flat confrontation, if you will, and things of that nature. But largely, man, this is not the first rodeo for him. It's not the first rodeo for him with us. And so I don't think any of us were surprised by the things that he was able to do for us. As a matter of fact, we expected it. I know he expected it. I think that was his 10th start for us now. And so it's not something that's troublesome or worrisome. We just expect that guy to play winning football for us.
Mike, going into the game, regardless of who the quarterback was the game plan to throw as often as you did, or did game circumstance dictate throwing 50 times?
Well, we played 5 quarters of football, and so you're going to have more numbers there. You can draw that conclusion however you want to draw it, but we played 5 quarters of football, and so there's going to be some numbers there that kind of are not what you wanted, if you will. We also had a featured runner that went over 100. But that's what happens when you snap the ball as much as we did and play as much as we did. We had roughly 35 minutes time of possession, and so that probably has a lot to do with your line of questions.
There were a few high snaps from Kendrick to Mason. What do they need to do this week to make sure that they're on the same page going into a second game together?
There's nothing to be on the same page about. Green's just got to get the snaps down. It doesn't require a meeting. It doesn't require schematic adjustments. Certain things are fundamental. And when you coach and play football at this level, sometimes you can make the simple complex, or you can get too smart. No, we're just going to ask that guy to snap the ball in a proficient, professional manner, and we're going to move on with our life. We're not going to put the quarterback under center and change our personality or approach that way. It requires nothing from Mason. Mason's got a lot of work ahead of him getting ready to play quarterback. And I think it's reasonable to expect the center to execute shotgun snaps on the. Now, he didn't in the last game, and so he's got to recenter his focus and do a good job there this week in preparation, but it won't create any additional meetings or planning from us. Just like we expect our guys to tackle better this week, and we expect our guys to maintain possession of the ball this week. It won't require any additional meetings or additional points of emphasis. It's steeped in our culture. It's fundamental, and so we'll go in with that understanding.
Going back to what Stan was asking, we talked after the game about the RPOs, and he said his read is when the box is stacked to try to make a play outside. Can you educate us a little bit when you do that? Is that always the read? Does a coach ever take over and say, look, the weather is crappy, they're not defending the run, our guys just have to beat their guys?
That is the read if we call an RPO play, but we don't always call an RPO play. When we call an RPO play, we expect them to execute the read, but sometimes we can simply call a pass or we can simply call a run. That's not anything earth-shattering or ground. That's really how all offenses function. Every time he steps up to the line of scrimmage, he's not in a run-pass consideration mode. That's just not what happens.
Mike, I know you were asked a lot about your run defense coming out of the Detroit game, but to your point about Herbert, he's one of many good quarterbacks you're going to face down the stretch here these last 8 games. How are you feeling about your pass defense coverage and rush, and how some of the depth players fit within it, given some of the injuries and COVID situations?
I'll be in better position to answer that Sunday night. But I always feel good about our group. Given an opportunity to prepare, regardless of whether or not we have Minka or Joe Hayden or others, you give us 6 days to prepare, I like our chances.
Yeah, Mike, you've never been in a situation with Minka missing a game. And you talked about multiple players, but who would be your next man up? Who do you think to get the early looks up?
Like I mentioned, we've yet to meet as a defensive staff. I meet with the defensive staff on Tuesday afternoons. I'd imagine it's going to be a multi-person discussion. Just like the replacement of Mike Hilton is a multi-person endeavor. When you got significant players, those that are multi-talented, usually that's the case, as opposed to putting the onus of it on one individual.
Brandon Staley is a coach who is aggressive, likes to possess the ball, does go for it a lot on 4th down. Does that affect the way you do things, or do you work in a vacuum and it doesn't change your personality?
I welcome that. Might as well bring it to a head.
But does that make you more aggressive when you're facing a coach who himself is?
We're going to do what we do. We don't care what the nameless gray faces we play do.
Mike, you're part of the competition committee. A couple of years ago, you tweaked the overtime period. Is it something that needs to be looked at or continually looked at, or are you happy with the 10-minute overtime period?
We continually look at things such as that are centered. Those discussions are centered around player safety. We want to have sufficient enough time to determine a winner, while at the same time working to minimize the number of snaps a group could play in a game, because you got another game waiting on you usually in 6 or 7 days, and that's the case in the league. And so that's always the premise of the discussion. And I have nothing that transpired that disputes that discussion or my position within the discussion, because we were in a overtime game that ended in a tie. I'm not going to be selfish in that way.
Mike, you mentioned to Joe's back here in the center.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
It's all right. To Joe's question, how far is Norwood, how does Killebrew fit into the defense, those guys that are going to fill in?
All are viable options, and we'll consider them.
Mike, is there an instance where maybe Ben is cleared really late in the week and you just still decide to go with Mason? Is there anything that could happen?
I'm sure there are a lot of hypotheticals that could change the discussion that I outlined, but basically, logistically, the framing that I outlined is the mode that we're in, and we'll cross those bridges when we come. So many decisions and significant days between now and then that we waste a lot of time pondering the hypotheticals. We're going to build a plan around Mason. That's what we're doing today. We get a work day tomorrow with our guys that kind of starts the week. That's what we intend to do tomorrow. We'll start weighing those things as the sand runs through the hourglass and we get closer to kickoff.
There are currently 13 teams in the NFL that have either 4 or 5 wins. That's never happened in the history of the league. Just globally speaking, when there are this many teams bunched together, when your division itself is so close and no one really seems to be on a run, what is the statement on the game, and how do you feel about that?
There is none. It doesn't change my approach or our focus. We don't worry about the Joneses. We take care of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a big game because we're in it. And I say that every week, and I mean it. As long as you're taking care of your in-stadium business, very rarely do you have to really look around and wonder what's going on around you. Over the course of the last month, we have probably done very little of that because we've been taking care of our business. And so that's where our energy and focus is and should be, preparing ourselves to take care of our business, and that becomes a less important discussion.
Mike, Joe Schobert said that the defense needs to take practice seriously. Is that Joe being a leader and saying something like that, or is there another level that you want to see out of your guys when you take the practice?
I have no issue with how we practice, and I'm sure Joe doesn't, and I'm sure he was just answering questions after a football game.
Mike, just to clarify, are you not counting on Minkah because there just isn't enough time to clear the protocol, just to clarify?
Correct, to my knowledge, but again, I don't have the details. I'm just assuming that that's the case.
Mike, one more thing about the Ben thing. You said you're creating a scheme for Mason. Are there that interchangeable between Mason and Ben?
Like I just mentioned, also, I said we prepared the game for Ben last week, and Mason executed it. And so there's not a lot of significant difference. It's not like, Mason Rudolph runs 4-4, and all of a sudden we're going to start doing some run pass options and things of that nature. It's not as significant a discussion as one would imagine. It's probably more likes and dislikes or feel-related things relative to the in-helmet perspective of the position.
Two more.
And kind of going off that, I know Ben is dealing with COVID, but how much will he in virtual meetings and still being able to participate from a distance?
100%. He was a full participant yesterday.
One more final one. Joe?
Yeah, you added a quarterback to the practice squad yesterday. How much do you need that third arm during the week, and what will he be able to give you?
He'll provide us a good look on service teams and allow the other 2 guys to focus exclusively on game prep.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin after his press conference, joined today by Bob Labriola. This is great work with Steelers Digest, Steelers.com. So once again, the big topic here is who's going to be healthy enough to play, and we got some answers there. It looks like Minkah Fitzpatrick, just because he went into this protocol, Bob, won't be. But Ben Roethlisberger could be, which is going to be something as they go throughout the week to finally figure out.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin also mentioned that, Ben participated yesterday in the virtual meetings, and that will be the case throughout the week. So that's an important development, I believe. Ben being able to be kept up to speed, kind of on what's going on. And you mentioned Minkah Fitzpatrick. To me, as was brought up in the press conference, this will be the first game since Minkah was acquired in that trade early in the 2019 season that he will miss a game. And Mike Tomlin mentioned that, replacing Minkah is not a one-person job. It's not a one-for-one substitution necessarily. And so I think that speaks to not only the varied skill set that Minkah Fitzpatrick makes to the defense, but it's also going to entail, I think, some, I won't say guessing, but some kind of feel from the Steelers sideline, who you want to have in the game in certain situations so that you're maximizing that player's abilities as a replacement for Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's unfortunate you can't get the Chargers coaches, to kind of cooperate, and when you have your run-stopping replacement for Minkah, they run the ball, and when you have your pass replacement in for Minkah, they throw the ball. That's going to be a bit of a challenge too, I think.
He likened it to Mike Hilton and tried to replace him. It's not an easy assignment, and it takes more than one people. You kind of move people around. We'll see what happens, but expect Trey Norwood to get a lot of time back there this week. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about what Mike Tomlin said, getting set for the LA Chargers, a team which lost last week at home to Minnesota. It's a crazy league right now. We'll dissect it all right here live on Pittsburgh CW and all the Steeler digital platforms.
purple towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
What message can you give the young guys going through a tie like this? It's something kind of new to them. You've experienced it before. What can you say?
I would just say there are things we can improve on. Not enough plays made by us to win the game, offense, defense, special teams. I know it's a tie, but if it's not a win, I don't really think you can hang your hat on that.
Cam, did you see anything in the week leading up, anything that warned you that something like this could happen?
Man, no. Gap integrity becomes huge. They did some things that were a little bit obscure. A couple times we were running blitzes, and most of the time it's give up football. But they made some plays in the run game, getting out. Extra alignment. We didn't do a good job of getting off blocks. When they have an extra alignment, they take a receiver off the field. But at the same time, we have to get off blocks, stay in our gaps, drive our feet. Early on, myself included, I missed a couple of tackles. But it came down to a tie game, and we needed some big plays, and we didn't get enough.
Are the inconsistencies in tackling with this defensive unit as a whole a concern to you right now?
When we lose, it's a concern. When we tie, it's a concern. We're in this game to win. I don't care how it's done, but we got to be better. We have to get more guys to the ball.
Has an opportunity, provided he gets the required negative testing to be available to play. You guys know that we've been in circumstances with Ben in the past when he's been less than available during the course of the week. Like I told the team yesterday in the team meeting, and I'll tell you guys, we're going to build our plan around Mason ready to play. We're going to highlight his talents and skills relative to the opponents that we intend to play. We're going to build that plan. We're going to work that plan. We got a young offensive unit. And we'll let that lead us throughout the week. If we get to a point in the week where Ben has an opportunity to get on a moving train, that's exactly what he'll do. He'll be capable of executing the game plan.
Welcome back, Bob Pompiani, Bob Labriola here. We're talking about what Mike Tomlin had to say, and you just heard him talk about the quarterback situation and the fact that Ben Roethlisberger could be ready to go. But again, this is kind of a murky situation here, Bob, with these testing and everything that happened. So they have to prepare for Mason Rudolph. Not unlike last week where the game plan was in, and yet after, Ben Roethlisberger surprisingly tests positive, he has to go in. And Tomlin made a good point. It's not like Mason runs a 4.4, 4.40. So the game plan shouldn't change all that much, right?
No, and I think it's a lot easier for the Steelers to do it this way, where the late insertion could be, the veteran future Hall of Fame franchise quarterback, as opposed to, the younger, less experienced guy that the move they had to make last week, for the game against the Lions. So, and this is going to be interesting to me because, Mike Tomlin mentioned that the Steelers have been through this kind of situation with Ben before, where he doesn't necessarily practice all week and then will play in the game. Those instances were injuries. This is COVID. And so, I don't know, if Ben's experienced symptoms or what those are or how he feels, all of that stuff, I have no idea. But, we've seen Ben try and pull this off, coming off a concussion with a concussion protocol and those kind of things. And again, I'm not a doctor, but I would just imagine that would be a more difficult situation than COVID. So, we're going to have to see how this works out. But I do think that what we learned from the Lions game, and I'm not here to bash Mason Rudolph, but to me, if Ben can play, if Ben is capable of playing, Ben Roethlisberger gives this team the best chance to win.
There's no question about that. Mason Rudolph, as Mike Tomlin said, gave them a chance to win, but he was also critical of his accuracy. And I think that's important because when it comes to plays, especially over the middle, there was a hard pass to Deontay Johnson, which could have been a big gainer. When you talk about yak yards, when you don't put it on the money, all of a sudden that big play is nullified.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was the exact same play or not, the pass you're referencing to Deontay Johnson, but it looked to me a lot like the pass late in the fourth quarter that Ben hit to ice the game against the Browns. And then we also saw it in a subsequent week, maybe it was against the Bears. It was a big play.
Late in the game.
Late in the game,
in the
right.
last drive. Right.
And that seemed to me, it looked to be open. It looked that if the ball had been, on the money to that degree, Deontay Johnson could have taken it and run with it for a good distance. That's that kind of pinpoint accuracy. Yes, you want it. Yes, they're pros. Yes, you want a guy to be able to come off the bench cold and do that. But, I do think that, repetition and being more comfortable in doing it over and over and over again, the muscle memory, Mason Rudolph doesn't have that Ben Roethlisberger does. And that's why I said earlier, if Ben can play, he gives the Steelers the best chance to win.
Plus, he's been around. He knows exactly what he's doing throughout the course of the week. He will be involved virtually, so it's just a matter of whether or not he's able to pass these tests and show no symptoms, which, you would hope that's the case moving into Sunday night, because it is a big game, another conference game, and everything is so tight right now in terms of these wins and losses. It would help to have a good run game, and the Steelers have largely had that for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and Najee Harris is the man who's led that way. This brings us to our BetMGM by the numbers, and you can see here, Bob, that 646 rushing yards, most by a rookie running back through 9 games. And boy, he's impressed me on so many levels because at times there are not a lot of holes, but he makes tough yards. He's also reliable. He doesn't really fumble the ball that much at all. In fact, I can't remember a fumble this year, which is a good thing given what we saw last week. But that would help if they dial that up the way they had in the previous 4 games. I think makes life easier no matter who's a quarterback.
Yeah, I remember a long time Steelers assistant coach and Dick Hoke, and he was a player even before that, told me once, I was talking to him about evaluating running backs, and he said, one of the things you look for is, does the running back get what's blocked, because that's the minimum, and does he get more than what's blocked? And I think what we've seen from Najee Harris on a consistent basis so far in his rookie year is he gets more than what's blocked. I mean, there will be contact. Maybe it even appears that his momentum is stopped, but then he seems to squirm or power or whatever 2-3 more yards. And so I think that really speaks highly of him, his future in this league, and really kind of, to me, justifies spending a number 1 pick on the guy.
Yeah, no question about that. And looking back at that game, that 1st and 5 situation, I would have liked to have seen more of him in those situations, even if there are 6 guys in the box, because quite frankly, he's a guy who can get yards. Reminds me of when they were one of the last trips out to San Diego, when it was a 4th and goal situation. They went to Le'Veon Bell because he was the best back, Mike Tomlin said, and he was the best option.
Right, and that was late in the game, and it was one of those situations where, do you kick it and go into overtime, or do you try to win it right there? And, the Steelers did it. They went for it. Mike Tomlin pushed all his chips into the middle of the table, and Wildcat snap to Le'Veon Bell. You go with your best player at the time, because that was the game that the Steelers, Michael Vick played some, and they used a couple 3 quarterbacks in that game, and so when dire situations required dire decisions, and it's going to be interesting because, as you mentioned, this is a big game. They did tie the Lions last week, and you need to get that taste out of your mouth and start stacking wins again, because, as you mentioned, the schedule does get a little more difficult.
And the Steelers on the road have beaten Buffalo. They've beaten Cleveland, 2 very good road wins, and they'll try to get another one on Sunday night. We'll take a break, come back with more of the Mike Tomlin press conference right here from the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the South Side.
Alex, what's the best way to describe how effective and why Detroit was with the running game?
They came out with a good plan, but we gotta handle it ourselves. We gotta come out. Ultimately, stopping the run is about whipping a man, making a tackle, and so we know that we got to be a lot better. Every one of us, you just got to look at each other in the mirror. Each of us look at each other in the mirror and just know that we can be better. But today was, unacceptable for especially in our run defense, and so we know we can be better and we will be better.
Mike Tomlin talked about it being more about tackling this week. I know a few weeks ago as the Seahawks, you guys talked a lot about gap integrity and being in the right assignment. Do you think it was more about tackling versus gap assignment play?
I think it's both. It's just all out effort. I think to be a great tackler, you got to give great effort, and we definitely lacked in that area today. But we know that we got to come back better, and we will come back better.
Alex, Jim Shover was saying that it felt like maybe you need to take practice more seriously as a group. Do you feel that? Did you see any of that heading into this game?
I think, we could practice, but ultimately, practice is measured by the outcome of the game. And so, we didn't end up with the victory, so, we got to be better at practice, and that's where it starts. And so, we know we got to have a great week coming up.
Alex, after TJ went out of the game, how do you think things kind of changed? Were they sliding protection more towards you as they started to throw the ball more, or was it just kind of the normal same game plan?
I couldn't really tell. I was just trying to go out there and do my job, but I'm praying for TJ. I know he's gonna want to be back out there as soon as he can.
Alex, what was your view on the roughing the passer? I know you were there, but Trey was there as well. What did you see?
I don't even know. I tried to get out of the way when I came over, so I don't even know who was on. So, but I didn't really have much of a viewpoint on it.
Did you even make contact? Did you feel anything?
I didn't. No.
You didn't feel anything, or?
Because when I came up, I kind of went like this.
Right. That's why I'm asking.
To get up.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Just like we expect our guys to tackle better this week, and we expect our guys to maintain possession of the ball this week. It won't require any additional meetings or additional points of emphasis. It's steeped in our culture. It's fundamental, and so we'll go in with that understanding.
And prior to that game against the Lions, the Steelers had taken care of the ball. They did not turn it over, but in that overtime, Bob, geez, you had two fumbles, which could have been game-winning field goal attempts. So with Boswell, his leg, it looks like he could have made either. And then you had the snap over the head of Mason Rudolph. Those are fundamental plays that will allow you not to win games that you probably could have won.
Right, and I remember sitting in the press box watching both the Deontay Johnson catch and run, and as I was watching him run, thinking, this is pretty much it. I would think about bringing Boswell out immediately, like right from there, pretty much. And because if you see the green line there, that's
normal field goal distance. For him, it goes beyond that, doesn't it?
And the same thing with the Pat Freiermuth situation. I thought just before that play started, just a couple of more yards and then bring the field goal kicker out, because I have confidence in Chris Boswell from 50 plus easily. The guy's a weapon.
Yeah, and this cost them 19 yards, and again, they were getting close to what would have been field goal range. And I don't know about you, but I haven't seen many overtime games in the NFL, but the ones we have seen, and the Steelers have been involved in two of them, 6 possessions combined and no points. That tells you how sloppy things were.
Yeah, and because usually at the overtime coin toss, what I was thinking was, if the Steelers win the toss, maybe Mike Tomlin, picks an end to defend, because then if you stop the Lions, then you only need a field goal. Mm-hmm. If you take the ball first, then you need a touchdown, and if you don't get it, then they only need a field goal. And because you have Chris Boswell and the way he's been kicking, I was thinking about that. Yeah. But then the coin toss, the Lions won. They took the ball and it made the whole thing moot.
And Boswell, his 51-yarder would have been good for like 63 or 64 yards. So he had the leg that day at that end of the end zone too. It's just a shame he never got the opportunity. We'll take a break, come back with more of the Mike Tomlin press conference right here on Pittsburgh CW and all your Steeler digital platforms.
Ray, a lot of targets yesterday. Were you expecting that coming in, or did the game just kind of lead to that?
First and foremost, I have to thank God, for the opportunities, and you never know going into a game what's gonna come and what's not gonna come. So my mindset was just anything that comes my way, make plays, and that's what it was, Do my job, my number called.
All right, Nick Faribault.
Hey, Ray, on the 5 there, you and Mason seemed like you might have had a miscommunication when Mason kind of hit it right in front of you there on the goal line. Looks like you ran a curl and up. Was that a miscommunication, or what kind of went on in that play there between you and Mason?
No miscommunication, just mis-execution. Just throughout the game, we didn't execute on certain plays, and that's something that bit us in the butt towards the end.
All right, Brooke.
Hey, Ray, a couple of weeks ago, I think last week, Mike Tomlin said that, the issues that you were having on punt return were just unacceptable. What kind of things do you practice during the week to make sure that you don't have any fumbles or muffs or anything like that going forward?
We always do ball security things, but for me, it's not a practice thing. It's more of a decision thing. And my mentality being back there, the times I have made mistakes back there, are trying to make the big play instead of making the 10, the 15. And me and Coach Tomlin talked about it, and it was more of let's be unselfish sometimes and just take the 10 yards rather than trying to make something bigger than something out of nothing, And those times that I had made mistakes in my career, that I've been in the NFL, trying to make something out of nothing, and sometimes you got to take what's given, But going forward, I'm not gonna take away my me being say the right thing when I say that aggressive.
But again, as always, man, we don't spend a lot of time lamenting those things and worrying about those that are unavailable to us. We'll focus our energies on those that are, the division of labor. Again, Minka's the type of guy that it might be a multiple person job in an effort to highlight their individual skills. Minka has a well-rounded skill set. You put him in any circumstances, he's going to perform relatively well. It may divide the labor up a little bit more, but that's what we do.
All right, so nobody can replicate what Minkah Fitzpatrick brings. However, they have options. They have Trey Norwood, a rookie, 7th-round pick who's played well. They also have Miles Killebrew, who's seen action there. And they have a guy on the practice squad who was a former #1 pick in Carl Joseph. How do you see it working out?
Well, let me just throw out another name since we're spitballing. Cam Sutton. I mean, here's another guy who I think can play a bunch of different positions. He might be especially effective in passing situations in that center field area. But Carl Joseph, in my mind, is a little bit too much like Terrell Edmonds, and I don't think you want to have two of the same back there as your two safeties. Maybe Carl Joseph is brought up and assumes some kind of a role, but in terms of playing next to Terrell Edmonds in place of Minkah Fitzpatrick, I don't think you want to do that against Justin Herbert.
Yeah, whatever, it's going to be a committee approach, and it should be, because Minkah, even though he doesn't have a pick, he had one nullified by penalty, he's still much more along than some of these guys, and it's going to take everyone to figure it out, or as Mike Tomlin likes to say, all hands on deck. When we come back, we'll talk about the significance of a tie. Is there? Bob has some interesting thoughts on that, and we'll continue right here live on Pittsburgh CW.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
How did it go last night? How did you find out about Ben and sort of, take us through that?
Coach Tomlin called me, and he's always been great with communication, making sure guys are aware as soon as he knows. So he told me before we, had meetings at the hotel. So, it was good to have a quarterback meeting and a walkthrough last night to kind of get yourself mentally acclimated, ready to rock. So.
Mason, it's good to have those couple of days during the week, though, too.
Yeah, I think it's always good, when you can, get as many reps as you can during the week to stay sharp, and so make the most of those. And I think that it's fortunate to be in the situation, to get those reps on Wednesdays and keep sharp and a lot of other guys around the league, they don't get that work as a backup. So I look forward to those days.
Mason, how was the ball? Was it wet, hard to throw? I mean, it was.
Yeah, I think everyone was dealing with that. Both sides of the ball. There's things you change, but obviously some throws I want to have back. I think the weather affected everybody out there a bit, but you got to find a way to get it done, and we didn't tonight. So we'll take a look and try to fix those mistakes.
Mason, it looked like Kendrick had a couple high snaps. Is there anything you can point to there, and what do you kind of say to him to settle him back down in the game and get on the same page?
Yeah, well, we got some in between those series and made sure he was honed in, but that happens. That's he's done a great job. That's never been an issue with Kendrick, so I don't expect that, but he's a young player, and obviously we're all dealing with those weather conditions, and it affects different people differently. But he's, like I said, I got a lot of confidence in KG.
Bob Pompiani, Bob Labriola back with you. So let's talk about a tie and what it means. There are 13 teams that have either 4 or 5 wins. It's all muddled together. So it's a tie, but it's not a loss. So that means it could help the Steelers theoretically, right?
Right. When you look at it, if the Steelers are tied with another team in terms of the number of wins, then the tie is a help because you have fewer losses.
Right.
One of the ways I was always taught to view standings in the newspaper was how many games behind are you in the loss column. So in a situation where 2 teams, say the Steelers and the Ravens, just to pick 2, both have 10 wins, well, the Steelers will have 1 fewer loss, and that puts them statistically ahead of the Ravens in terms of winning percentage, and then you don't have to get into tiebreakers.
However, if you don't have as many wins.
Well, if you have the same number of losses,
right,
then that tie hurts you because you have 1 fewer win.
Right.
And then you're behind that other team in terms of winning percentage.
Yeah, so ties are good or not good. I just don't like ties, period, in any level. But they happen, and it happened this week in a very unusual set of circumstances. We'll take a break and wrap up today's show right after this here on Pittsburgh CW.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz
Field. Joe, what made the run game so difficult to defend?
I think we got a lot of looks we didn't necessarily practice during the week with their big tight end they brought in. Obviously, we knew Fells was gone. We didn't really know what they were going to do. in it to replace him, and they gave us a lot of looks, and it took us probably longer than it should have to be able to start nailing the screws down on that.
What did Mike Tomlin say to you guys in the locker room just now before you guys came up to talk? What was kind of the message?
I don't honestly remember. Just we got a lot of stuff to work on. Like, he appreciates the fight, but fight is what's required to play the NFL football. And bottom line, we got to take care of the football and get the football back on defense more than we did today to expect to get a win.
It seemed like the second half, the tackling was bad, and then the overtime was really good. Was there something that changed, or what kind of happened in that third, especially that one long drive?
Yeah, well, I think it was just that third quarter, the first drive, a couple of missed tackles, and I don't have an answer for you on that. I wish I did.
Joe, does it feel like a loss in a way because of the circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially at the end, getting the ball into field goal range, trying to close out the game and get a win. A loss in the NFL a tie in the NFL always feels like a loss when you get to the locker room because you're not adding one to the win column. And I mean, it's a half game. It might make a difference at the end, but to let it slip away because you're that close definitely hurts.
There was an emphasis on missed tackles leading up to the Browns game. You guys responded holding them down. How frustrating is it to see that same problem kind of crop up today?
Yeah, it's something we have to go and execute, and it's hard to execute in the middle of the season at practice. But it's something we have to work on, get ourselves into those positions, and take practice seriously to be able to improve on it.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Welcome back. We're just about out of time. Bob, looking forward to another big week. It's a big game on Sunday.
Yeah, and it's not up to me, but it's okay with me if this one ends after 4 quarters.
Yeah, we don't want 5 quarters, especially that late at night. That's going to do it for our program. For Bob Labriola, I'm Bob Pompiani. And for Missy Matthews and everyone here, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next Tuesday for another Tomlin Tuesday.